Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mallory's Weird World Adventures, the podcast. I'm your host, Mallory, and I'm here to show you just how weird this world of ours really is. And today we have our co-host, Michael, here with us.
Hello.
Welcome, Michael, again.
Thank you.
So today we're going to continue discussing Romania, which we did a couple episodes back. Except we're going to expand on that to specifically talk about Bran Castle. If you don't know, Bran Castle is Dracula's castle. If there was a single location I could have picked to feature on my show, Weird World Adventures, it would have been Bran Castle, because it's Dracula's castle, nestled up in the hills in Bran, near Brasov in Transylvania. I've reported before that many people don't know why Bran Castle was referred to as Dracula's castle. I think that's an interesting place to start, because despite being known as Dracula's castle, some swear Bram Stoker modeled Dracula's castle in his book after Bran, though many people actually do not agree with that, as Bram Stoker never stepped foot in Bran Castle. And it was also said that Vlad Tepes III never actually visited Bran Castle, since he was the ruler of Wallachia, and not Transylvania, by the way, because there's no official documentation of him ever being there. So I think that was something we noted right away.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. It's they definitely leaned hard into it being Dracula's castle. Like, you walk into that town, it's all about, it's a small town, built up around very much this castle, and it's just all Dracula stuff. Right? Everyone's selling you Dracula stuff there. It's all leaning into the Dracula castle, and then to find out there's not any evidence that he actually resided there. I mean, I guess he probably had a lot of castles. I don't know how often you'd have more than one castle. I mean, I keep at least a few castles on the side.
I mean, there's summer castles.
I don't use my summer castle all the time. Yeah, lake castle, as one does.
Yeah, holiday castles. That was definitely a thing.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I have a couple myself.
Right. We were lucky enough, as I just said, and unbelievably thrilled to feature Bran Castle on Weird World Adventures, where we had an exclusive interview with Matthew Petricer. I hope I said that right. It's Romanian. Petricer?
Don't ask me.
With Bran Castle. He was an incredible interview, which you guys will see starting out the second season of Weird World on Amazon Prime, which should be coming out next fall, so you'll have to wait for that, but it's definitely worth the wait.
Check out season 1 in the meantime.
Yes, on Amazon Prime now. He was a great interview. He was very engaging and excited to tell all of the tales and lore of Transylvania and, more specifically of Bran Castle. And he assured us that Bran Castle was absolutely the setting for Dracula. He was willing to die over that.
He was all in. I mean, he had fully drank the blood, the Kool-Aid.
The blood Kool-Aid, the blood-flavored Kool-Aid.
He was like fully. Yes, he was fully convinced into the Dracula lore.
He assured us that Bran Castle was regularly visited by Vlad Tepes III when he was planning for battles and hiding his family. You see, he was born in Sighisoara, and he ruled in Wallachia, so it only made sense that Bran Castle was on his regular route in between the two. Between, visiting home, where he was born, and Wallachia, where he was ruling, he would regularly stop in Bran Castle as it was a part of his route. So he said that he would stay there regularly, and it was usually a place he would stay when they were planning out some of their militia, the warfare, the fighting.
Seems totally reasonable.
Yeah.
That logic.
All right, everyone, I should say that we did get to talk to Matthew in the courtyard of Bran Castle a little bit more about all the topics that we're discussing right now. So I'm going to cut to him right now so you can hear a little bit about what he has to say on this topic.
A lot of people don't take time to study.
Right.
They just heard something and then they come. But and I explained to you, and it's easy to understand because it was the kingdom. The king lives in the capital, which makes sense. Like the King of England stays in Buckingham Palace, but also he has more than one castle. From time to time, he goes to visit the castles he has. Even like, for instance, King Charles has 3 properties in Romania, and he came 1 month ago to visit his property over here. So it was the same with Dracula, and at that time, the kingdom was under attack. So he had castles in order to protect the family where they used to hide. That was not recorded in history, and Dracula was actually not even from Wallachia. He was born in Transylvania.
Right.
And on his path, because I explained to you, down to Wallachia, he used to very often, dozens of times, he used to stop overnight, like a couple days, to get food, water. When he was arrested, when he attacked Brasov and he impaled 500 Saxon people, he had a campaign against the city nearby because he was upset with the way they used to collect the tax. And also when he had a campaign against the thieves down in the pass nearby here, because he was very, very upset with the fact that the thieves were very often robbing the merchants that they were coming here, and he was losing money. So those are things that happened over here. But the reason they say that is because they know that he was the Prince of Wallachia and he lived in Târgoviște, in the capital. And that's what they learn in history, and that's everybody knows. But obviously a king will never stay only in the capital.
Right.
Yeah, so that's very simple. You just have to read history, understand, and free your mind and understand what was going on in the life of a prince at that period.
It's a very dramatic castle.
Yes. It has like a very sheer
Sheer.
edge to one side. The side you come in on, it's almost like they designed it for taking pictures of, like epic castle pictures. It's exactly what you would think a epic fortress from some kind of book like Dracula should look like. And it's just angled in a way where you just get great shots of it kind of angled kind of from below it. It's up on a hill relative to where you start. So you are kind of angling up and you can capture most of the front and like two sides. It's gorgeous.
Yeah,
it's impressive.
It's very looming and it's intimidating. And the pictures that you generally see of it are of the side. Like it was a very strange front entrance, like comparatively so.
Kind of unclear where the front entrance really even is.
Yes.
When you're going into it, there's few entrances. One kind of becomes clear that it's the front entrance, but even going into it, I was like, is this the actual front entrance? It's not like a giant like gatehouse, like, with a moat, like where the drawbridge came down. You're kind of up in the side of it, and there's a few doors. I was unclear which one we were supposed to go in.
And we had to knock, and we're like, do we knock?
Have to knock.
do we knock on this one? Where do we go? How do we move forward with this?
You went to...
You
went to use the bathroom and went out one door and didn't know where to go back in. Yeah.
Yes,
you ended up a few halls down.
Yes. So, speaking of that, Matthew did tell us, he was just wonderful, but he told us that Bram Stoker actually had a friend that visited the castle and relayed the documentation and layout of the castle to Stoker when he was writing Dracula. So he did assure us that there was like documentation that he used this castle to represent Dracula's castle.
Bram Stoker never actually visited himself, you said, but then he had a friend that came that brought the information to him, correct?
Yes. Now, it's easy. Also, it's also very easy because when you are, let's say, you want to write a book and you want to create a story, a successful story, and then what do? You
research.
Exactly. So he did some research, and that's how he got in touch with the legend and the name and the story that impressed him. Because I asked you at the beginning, what comes to your mind when you hear the name of Dracula? So it was such a good name, and perfect for his story, and then he decided to name his character Count Dracula. Now, if you want to write a book about a vampire in America, you also have to have a good and a mysterious background for your story. Like, let's say, for instance, you will decide to be a writer, and you will say that behind your house in Virginia, there is a creepy house, and somebody's coming every night over there, and you discover that the person is coming, it's Jimmy Hoffa, because he also disappeared. And you will say that he became a vampire, and because nobody really knows what really happened with Jimmy Hoffa, you will say that you know what really happened. That's what Bram Stoker did, because when Dracula died, he was arrested by the Hungarian king right here at Bran Castle, and then he was sent to Budapest, but then he disappeared in a mysterious way. And that's the reason we live forever, because of the name, Son of the Devil, because of the mystery behind his life, and the fact that his body was never discovered. So then very easily you can say that Jimmy Hoffa became a vampire, or you can say Dracula became a vampire because the body is missing.
Right. I like that. And Queen Marie also was here in the early 1900s and was very important to the property and to Romania. Can you tell us a little bit about her and her mark she left here on Bran Castle too?
Okay, so see, that's a very good analogy, because the queen used to live in the capital. But this castle was also her castle, because she was the queen.
Right.
And from time to time, she used to come and spend some time over here. Just like Dracula, he used to come from time to time over here, even from Sighișoara, because it was a checkpoint and very important for him to collect the money and to defend the kingdom. This was, if you are attacked by the king in the north, you come and protect the kingdom at your military castle defense line. Like it's Fort Alamo between Texas and Mexico, so it's very important for that. Let's say there will be a king in Texas. So going back to your question, Queen Mary, she is actually the grandmother of the owner today, and she received this castle as a donation with full rights. She really liked it. At that time, Dracula was not a thing, and it became her favorite place to come from Bucharest, up in the mountains. There is another castle that she really liked to go at the sea, and we all know, for not necessarily for a woman, but we all like to go at the sea more than we like to go at the in the mountains. But this was so dear to her heart, and she transformed the old military castle into a cozy, romantic residence.
They say, I mean, like if you read the novel Dracula, when Jonathan Harker is approaching the castle, it's very dark and eerie, and there's wolves, and it's made to be very intimidating. And the countryside of Transylvania is actually one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen.
It wasn't what I expected.
No.
In a good way.
It was not very dense with trees. It was not the woods that you would expect. Reading Dracula. However, I will say the main entrance was defined by that carriage road. There was like a road you would take the carriage up, and it took around to the front. And past that, there was a lot of woods, so maybe the road used to come a different way. That was more...
The other side, I guess, I don't know if it's actually the back, but what is the back from relative where you come in the town is kind of up on a cliff looking down over pretty wooded areas. So if you were coming in that way,
right.
that would have felt more like what I would have pictured Transylvania and Dracula's looming castle to look like. Yes. Like coming through dense mountainous woods up a cliff at the castle. But I guess we should say we were there in the daytime at first and had the fortunate ability to stay and take the tour at night with Matthew.
Just by ourselves.
But we did see it just during normal operating hours at first, and it was two very different experiences. During the day, it's just well lit. The town around it is just fully into Dracula lore, selling just nonsense.
It's packed.
Dracula's just packed. It's just packed. It's like a party town for Dracula.
Oh yeah.
And there's just hundreds of people milling around, touring
Yes.
the castle, and it's perfectly lit. It has a lot of just open courtyard areas inside of it, so it's beautiful, but not creepy really in the day. I
Definitely
wasn't
not
scared.
creepy.
I didn't feel it. It
No.
didn't feel that way. And then once everyone leaves and the lights kind of go down, it definitely felt way more wooded and
creepy
and kind of blends into the countryside. And
yes. And there were a lot of very loud birds at nighttime, not in the day, but at nighttime that sounded like bats. Because when we were out in the courtyard, I'm like, that sounds like bats.
could they have been bats?
Well, I don't think so. I think he said they were birds because I remember being like, well, that's weird. These birds are out at night, right? It was
vampires.
It was very loud seabird kind of sounds, but it sounded enough like bats for you to be like, well, are there bats flying around everywhere over my head? Like the sound was just perfectly poetic for being, the setting to Dracula.
Maybe that's where some of the bat lore came from.
Maybe so. It did sound like I remember distinctly being convinced it was bats, and then I think he's like, "Oh no, it's the birds," and you're like, oh, "Okay, well that's the animal." We'll get to the animal stuff too, because the animals around that area are also not what you would expect.
We got a few bear warnings.
Yes.
And the first guy, the guy who rented us the car.
Yeah.
At the airport was like,
Yeah.
watch out for bears. I was like,
We were
okay,
in, like,
okay, buddy.
Cluj.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in a city.
Yeah. And we had said we're going here and here, and we're driving to Brasov. And when we said we're going to Brasov, he's like, oh, watch out for the bears.
I thought he was just
Yeah, I thought he was kidding.
with us.
And then when we ended our interview with Matthew and we got to kind of explore the grounds by ourselves until we wanted to leave, which was really cool, he like left us with the reminder of make sure you watch out for the bears. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, there's bears in the woods. Watch out for the
they're not a
bears.
joke?
So apparently the bears were real. And whereas you might think wolves because of all of our Gothic literature, it's actually bears that you should be afraid of.
I watched
Bears
a
and
documentary
seabirds.
about bears.
Oh. If you guys haven't watched Grizzly Man,
I
should
highly
watch
recommend
it.
it. Totally unrelated to
Yes.
anything we're talking about here.
definitely watch it and then hit me up somewhere on social media and let me know if you thought that it was dramatically sad or kind of a dark comedy. I need to know. I need to know your thoughts. You'll know once you watch it.
Timothy Treadwell thought he was a bear. All right.
Anyway,
Go back to Bran.
Matthew pointed out that the rulers of Bran Castle had many castles, as we had said. See, your summer castles came back into relevance here.
Okay.
He did point out that they had many different castles, and they visited them and stayed in them as they traveled throughout their kingdom. So it only made sense that Vlad Tepes III, Vlad the Impaler, for everyone who doesn't know, it's Dracula, would
Hero.
visit. Yeah, he's definitely a hero.
I put my rock in hero.
Definitely a hero. Our hero of this would visit Bran Castle as one of the many in his territory, especially since it was between his birthplace and the land that he ruled. So it made sense when he explained it to us. But it was quite amusing because I did ask that question and he was immediately like, oh, no, he definitely was here. He was very passionate about it, which I respect. I have mad respect for his passion. I would too. And so the structure of Bran Castle is a massive twisting maze of stairs, towers, courtyards, and passages, all the things you would expect out of Dracula's castle. And I like the regular tours here, the best of any in the area, because you buy admission and can kind of move through at your own pace and read the history at your own speed. A lot of castles in Eastern Europe make you go on timed tours with a guide, which is interesting because if you have a guide, if you can do an English-speaking tour, it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I went on many that didn't have English-speaking tours, and they gave me a packet to follow along and then wouldn't go in the right order, so it became very confusing. So it was a hit or miss. This was definitely the best because you could do it at your own speed, which is fabulous. And it's pretty busy, like we said, and bustling most of the time. And you can add on a trip into the torture device area, as well as a trip through the dungeon, and secret passage out.
I mean, do it. It was
Definitely.
it was very inexpensive. You're in Romania. You're in Transylvania.
Right. Just go
Splurge
for
the extra
it.
$10 and see the extra 2 things.
There's some pretty creative torture devices in there.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember specifics.
Well, there was your standard what?
Like the
standard
Iron
ones,
Maiden.
Iron Maiden.
Yeah. The stretcher.
The stretcher, the rack.
The rack. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
The stretcher.
The stretcher. You're fired from naming the devices. They had I don't remember what it was called. It had a crazy name. We didn't even understand how it worked. Remember, first of all, they have like diagrams with them to show you how this apparatus would
Yes, I bet you I have
horribly mutilate
pictures.
a person. But there was one that was like a triangle thing. It was unusual enough looking where I was unclear how this would be used to harm a human being in any way or what its function was. We found what it was called. It's a Judas cradle, and it was just a giant triangle spike. But what is this for?
The victim would be stripped, bound with ropes, and suspended above the device. They would then be lowered, usually slowly, onto the device, making the pyramid enter their vagina or anus.
Ooh. By the way, this is not like a sex object, like a sex toy sized device. This was like a foot in diameter,
Yes.
3 feet tall, just wooden triangle block.
It's a spiky pyramid
Yeah.
that is a solid, like, human size and width.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
It's not going to fit in one's anus comfortably.
At all. You will be ripped to shreds
I
as
think
it
that was the
enters
goal,
your
yeah.
anus. Yes. Apparently, it was just to add to the fun. It was rarely, if ever, cleaned. If victims did not die from the device, they almost always died from infection. Torture with the
They didn't die from the device.
The
How are you going to survive?
Maybe they don't stick it all the way in. Torture with the Judas cradle could last for several hours to several days.
It's just the tip. I just used the tip of the Judas cradle.
Right. And this even says, apart from the pain, the humiliation was the primary attraction for this method of torture. You save this for the people that really offended you.
Shame.
Shame. Oh, no. Oh, no. There was also the spiky chair they would sit you on that would impale you, and the classic Iron Maiden. And
A lot of just beheading and amputation and whatever.
And the rack.
The rack's good.
The
Rack's
rack,
a classic.
the one that we just saw, though, because we just referenced this, also had spikes on it, and they would, like, impale you with the spikes.
Like
while
roll you
were,
over it.
Yeah.
While you're
Ooh.
being stretched on it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So you would be spiked to death and stretched out to death at the same time. You can't just... There were very creative things in there.
They didn't have the bull.
The brazen bull,
The
yeah.
brazen bull.
They didn't have a brazen bull.
Missing out.
You stick,
No respectable torture chamber is complete without a brazen bull.
Right. You stick someone inside, and it's, a metal bull, and then you light a fire under it. So they get, cooked inside the metal. I guess going back to our well, I also would like to say, I have another...
Anyways, it was worth the extra few dollars
Yes,
to see.
definitely see the torture
anus
chamber
spike.
and the anus spike. The anus spike alone was worth
for
it.
sure.
Also, it wasn't at Bran, but when I was at Kachiske Castle, which was the Elizabeth Bathory's castle, they had an Iron Maiden. I stepped into the Iron Maiden. It wasn't the smartest decision that I've made in my life. My boss dared me to do it, and I accepted, which
Were you
I
on
must...
good working terms at this time?
See,
or-
we were.
Okay.
I thought about it. I'm like, no, I'm trusting her with my life right now. This is kind of, I don't know how I feel about this, but we got some photos and videos in
Why
there.
don't you step in there? On a side note, we're downsizing, so let me just go ahead and close this.
It was a real Iron Maiden, and I definitely got my sweater stuck to it. So you can just leave. I'm gonna leave you with that imagery there. For our visit, after the incredible interview of the castle with Matthew, we sat a while in the courtyard and soaked in the ambiance. And there's nothing quite like sitting in the dimly lit courtyard of Dracula's castle while feeling the cool night breeze and hearing the chirping from nearby bats. Well, here I said it was bats, but I assure you he told me it was birds. So I was wrong once, and it's either now or before. It most definitely lives up to its reputation.
It's those seabirds.
Those damn seabirds.
Near no water at all.
I mean, I thought it was weird enough to note it in my head. Now I'm going to have to look up the animal life near Bran Castle. It's also important to note that Bran Castle can be rented out for events. So be sure to inquire about that if you'd like to rent it out. Celebrities regularly do so. In fact,
I mean, how much would that cost?
thousands of dollars. I mean, you're probably spending like 10 grand, right, for a party, at least.
Easily. I mean, that would be doable. Like, that's like in the realm of doable. It would be something like comically, like.
I don't know. We'll have to look it up now. It is a thing. And Nicolas Cage recently stayed the night in the master bedroom there, preparing for his role of Dracula in Renfield. And Elon Musk rented it out for Halloween last year.
He's the best, worst actor of our time.
And he's followed us. Okay, sorry. We followed him. He's been one step ahead of us.
He has.
We have followed him all over. He had stayed the night in Dracula's castle before we did. And then when we went to New Orleans, first of all, he bought Delphine LaLaurie's mansion. The house of the woman who tortured all of her slaves. He just bought it and then sold it because he didn't have any money.
I can't imagine why. He's throwing parties and staying the night in Dracula's castle, and he had that pyramid tomb built.
Yeah, he had a pyramid tomb built over two lots. It wasn't just one. In the cemetery where Marie Laveau is buried in
some wise financial decisions.
Yes, but I heard that he bought the tomb because they can't take your tomb from you. Like if you put all of your wealth into your burial, they can't take that from you. They actually can't. There's rules about what they can and can't take when they come for you when you don't pay your taxes.
I'll show all those people that said you can't take it with you. I'm paying it all into my death.
Yep.
I'm taking it all with me. And
Elon Musk actually rented out Dracula's castle the Halloween prior to use for a party for Halloween. And I mean this will go back thematically to the story that you talked about earlier, where we were planning to leave Dracula's castle after our wonderful interview that you guys will see in the next season of Weird World with Matthew. And I had to use the bathroom. And I asked him, where it is, because we're kind of hanging out in the courtyard and taking pictures. I had to pee. So, of course, I asked him where the bathroom is. And he's like, oh, just go down this hallway, go down 3 rounds of stairs. And they're like twisty, windy stairs. And then it's the first, you can't miss it. Then the door is just on your right.
It's the 4th one on the left, but don't go to the 5th. That's the Judas Cradle.
Yes. It was he made it seem like, oh, just go down 2 flights of stairs and it's this door. And I overanalyzed what he said and was like freaking out about, I don't want to open the wrong door. And I'm like going down these winding stairs, like, is it this door? Is it this door? And completely messed it all up. I don't know. I mean, it was as simple as it could be in theory, but it was very complicated trying to find the 3rd door on the right. And let me tell you, I wound up outside.
Yeah, I found you outside with the bears.
Yep. I literally was just outside. And he had already warned us about the bears. So I'm like, oh my God, am I going to be killed by bears tonight? Like, I just wound up outside. And then I'm like, oh, maybe the bathroom is outside. Because, he said this door, and I definitely went to this door. So then I start wandering the castle. And I thought maybe it was on the side of the and then by the time I get back to the front door, I'm like, I have failed. And I went back, and thank God I wasn't locked out because I was worried about that too. And I got back in and then continued on. And I did wind up finding it eventually. I think I went 1 door too many, but 1 door too many leads you to death by bear. So do you know a lot of William Shakespeare?
No, I wasn't a theater kid.
Okay.
I know some. But...
A Winter's Tale. One of the most famous stage directions ever written, I will stand by this, was exit pursued by bear.
It's pretty good.
They had a live bear on stage.
That's pretty good. I think I have heard that story.
Was pursued by a bear.
Okay. It's good.
Anyway, that's what I thought of. And of course, we had to exit through the dungeon. He's like, well, you guys have to come out with me through the dungeon on the way out. It's not the same if you don't do the dungeon experience. And he's telling us about it. And this is when we knew he was like, he believed in Dracula. I truly believe that he believed in vampires, our friend Matthew, I'm pretty sure. And he definitely believed in Dracula.
Well, you got him talking about the book at the end.
Yes.
We went out the dungeon.
Yes.
At, like, the side exit. And you...
Yeah, it's... So the dungeon kind of takes you out the bottom of the hill. And if you've read Dracula, it's where the horse race scene at the end ends. And it's where Quincy Morris kills Dracula.
That's what it was.
Yes. And he literally announced, this is where Quincy Morris killed Dracula.
Yeah. It was at that point where throughout the tour, I was more and more, is this it's a work of fiction, right? We're talking about a work of fiction, right?
Maybe.
And at the end there, I was like, I think.
Maybe not.
I think he believes.
And I think, he was like super impressed that I had read the book, I guess, because most people don't. And he asked, he like paused to say, well, you know who killed Dracula, right? And I'm like, Quincy Morris. And he's like, I can't believe you know. I got some serious brownie points for knowing who Quincy Morris was. Because every adaptation of Dracula, for some reason, takes Lucy's three suitors and turns them into one person. And it's usually it's usually Jonathan Seward. But I think I've seen it be Arthur Holmwood before, too. But it's never been Quincy Morris, right? He just gets cut from every Dracula movie you've ever seen, except for the one that you like, the Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 90s. They did keep them all in.
It's the best one.
Yeah, it is. It's surprisingly accurate, while also just not being accurate at all. But it does very much follow the main plot pretty well. Anyway, our buddy believed that was real.
I will say, there's not like a lot of great Dracula adaptations. No. I think that's the best one, in my opinion.
Yes. I mean, the ones with Christopher Lee, you know how I feel about it. I love Hammer horror, and I think Christopher Lee was a fabulous Dracula. And I mean, they just like messed around and did whatever the hell they wanted to do after the first movie. But you start watching it, and I think Jonathan Harker died in the first 10 minutes. And you're like, what? Well, the movie's over, I guess. What happens next? And you're like, well, this is a different story. And I've never seen a book been adapted where they change the main characters' names interchangeably all the time. They will switch John Seward and John Harker like all the time. And they'll switch Mina and Lucy. Less so, but still.
Do you think there's overall better quality Dracula movies out there or Frankenstein movies? I have yet to see a good Frankenstein movie that actually is anything like the book.
Not a single one. Bram Stoker's Dracula is like, I think it's won the crown of being there was a BBC adaptation that was almost like verbatim, but it was so boring and it went on forever. And I was like, okay, this is why they probably changed some of it. So Bram Stoker's Dracula really takes the crown for that. Frankenstein's monster is actually ingenious. Like he is very intelligent. He teaches himself pretty much to read and write, and it like kind of goes through his journey on his own, like kind of through adolescence into being a very hyper intelligent being.
We talked about this, right?
Yes.
The steampunk episode.
Yes.
Check out the steampunk episode.
And then all of a sudden he's like, and like he doesn't. I don't know. They make him challenged.
Yeah.
And specifically, there is a Robert De Niro version. Have you seen the Robert De Niro one?
It's good till the end, right?
Yes. It was almost perfect. And I remember going through thinking, wow, this is like, they're going to do this. This is going to be the best It would have been better than Bram Stoker's Dracula. And then it just jumps the shark.
It's like they didn't read the last few chapters. And said, we'll just wing it at the end here.
What? I think they turned Elizabeth into Frankenstein, or the Bride of Frankenstein.
It's total nonsense.
It's nonsense. You're like, well, this just went haywire. It was good until it just wasn't.
Until Fonzie jumped that shark.
And then it was over. So I guess to get the full interview and insight, which will be very good, make sure you check out season 2 of Weird World Adventures. There is a wonderful rant that Matthew goes off on about how like blood is life. He was explaining to us why vampires were important in mythology and lore, and was very much.
It's a great interview.
Yes, into blood is life.
It's a very cool thing to see.
Yes,
us talking about it doesn't do it justice. So
yes, very exciting. And before we go, we have to talk a tiny bit about Brasov, too, because Brasov is great.
It was a cool city.
While Bran Castle should most definitely bring you into the Brasov area, it's important to also get to experience the Brasov city as well. If you're looking to stay deep in the heart of the city, near the square, we stayed in the Hotel Bella Musica, which I really liked.
Yeah, it was great.
You made, like, besties with that hotel receptionist.
Yeah.
He loved you.
Yeah, what did we have in common? I forget what we hit it off on.
Something totally random. You were both men.
Oh, that's what it is. We both have penises. How about that?
Wow. Yep.
There was something. It was something minor and irrelevant. But yes, we were besties by the end.
Yeah, I mean, I was the one on the reservation, and he added you, and then he was just like, I was old news. It was like, no, this guy. It was a very charming, elegant little place in an old building. Like, so we're staying like in an old house, which was very cool.
Yeah, we were up a few flights. The ceiling was, angled like because you're under the roof.
Right.
And it had like big old wooden beam look to it. It was cool.
It was very cool. There are free regular walking tours in English, which we didn't get to do, but they were saying that it's free. And they took you around the city, which is very cool. It's a 2-hour tour, more or less. And we were lucky enough to go to the street food festival, which was delicious.
That was pretty cool.
There's I had like chili meaty fries.
You made some questionable choices and it was a mistake.
Questionable choices and it was a mistake. Yes, that's very true. Oh, it's so pretty.
He was the concierge at the hotel was the one that turned us onto the garden, the beer garden.
The beer garden. Our favorite spot was the Juno Wine Garden.
That's what it was. Yeah, wine
yes.
garden. It was. You wouldn't have found it. We wouldn't have found it without being told where it was.
It was like behind the hotel on a tiny bike path in the back entrance of like these old buildings.
It was like between two old walls of the city.
That
you'd be on one side of it and just assume that's a wall.
Right.
And then you're on the other side, that's the other side of the wall. But it's two different walls, and tucked in between them is this beautiful wine garden with like little booths made out of giant wine tuns.
Yeah. It had dangling lights and just all these pretty trees, and it's like a garden, and it lights up nice at night, and you can sit in these wine barrels, and it was packed too.
Food, drinks, not just wine. You could just eat there.
Everything about it was really wonderful. And I just saw this picture before we go. I have to tell this last story because it was pretty great. We did eat downstairs at the Hotel Bella Musica.
It had a very good downstairs restaurant, too.
It had a great restaurant, but what they thought was Western food was not Western food. It was like if you ordered the goulash, you got the goulash, right? If you ordered the Eastern European food, that's what you got, right? They had a Mexican menu, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be this is gonna be questionable." This is your fault,
though. What kind of fool goes to Transylvania and orders tacos? What are you talking about? This is not like a Taco Bell opened, like a McDonald's in another country that just serves the same menu. We're just in a Romanian restaurant.
To be fair, I thought I was ordering enchiladas, remember? Okay, I thought it was enchiladas. And come to find out, it was tacos covered in ketchup.
And I ordered like goulash or something. I ordered something culturally appropriate. And those dishes come out and it's covered in ketchup. And they're just tacos covered in ketchup.
And I don't like ketchup at all. I will not eat ketchup.
She's just staring at that plate, and I was like, I'm eating those fucking tacos, aren't I?
It was like the 4th week that I was in Eastern Europe, and I had so much goulash, and I just wanted Mexican, and it was a mistake.
Puppy dog eyes looking at me. Guess I'm losing this goulash.
Oh, my God. I think it was goulash.
I think it was goulash, yeah.
Yeah. And
It was very good.
that was the
From the one
second
bite that
failure.
I had of it.
That was my second failure, too. Because the first failure was I wanted a cucumber salad. Because they had a cucumber salad, and it just said cucumber salad. It was
You'd think that'd be fairly hard to
fuck up.
fuck up.
It was pickles with ice.
But not just ice. It was literally just chopped up pickles on a
ice.
like bed of ice cubes.
Yes, that is actually what it was. And I'm like, someone's messing with me here, right? Someone has to be messing with me. Like, don't get me wrong, their food was exceptional, but I just had to order things I shouldn't have ordered.
The tacos / enchiladas are your fault. I blame you for that. I don't know what kind of person goes to Transylvania and says, I'll have tacos. I'll have 3 soft beef tacos, please.
Enchiladas. Enchiladas.
Make sure to douse them in ketchup.
Oh, man. And the worst part, I don't even want to admit this to you now because I'll never hear the end of it, but I'm going to admit it. It said that on the menu. And I was like, surely this is a mistake.
I didn't know that.
It said enchiladas with ketchup sauce or something. And I was like, well, this is just a translation error.
Fool.
Boy, was I wrong. Not a translation error. Or maybe the menu wasn't in English and I used a translation app and I thought the translation, whatever it was, I'm like, surely this is not
I don't remember if it
an
was
enchilada.
Some of them were, some of them weren't.
Ketchup. Right.
Some of them had both, had English under it.
Yes.
I don't remember.
I'm not sure. But either way, I wound up with what you wound up.
Yeah, I
Ketchup
yeah.
tacos.
Let's be clear here. I ate those fucking tacos.
Oh my god. Anyway, we highly recommend Brasov. Brasov was a very wonderful city. And there was a tower that you could climb up to, the old city towers. We did at nighttime to get a nice view of the city.
There were like 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like the white tower and the black tower.
Mm-hmm. It was very cool. So if you're in Brasov, you have to check out Bran Castle. Please do. You will not be disappointed. And then you definitely should check out the towers.
Stay at least a day
Yes.
in Brasov,
Yes.
in addition to seeing the castle.
Yes, if not more.
Yeah.
And there's, of course, a Starbucks right in the city center. So, just something for everybody.
And the best ketchup tacos this side of Eastern Europe.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good ending point there. Didn't get weird enough. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Weird World Adventures this week. Thank you, Michael, for joining me.
Thank you, as always.
Of course. And until next time, everybody, stay weird.